All right, we're back here in the JConcepts garage for another video blog episode. We're here with Paul Wynn. We got a couple vehicles out here today. We're going to do a little racing talk here in the garage. We've had a lot of large events recently, some regional, some state level events. Paul, I'll talk to you first about some on-road racing that you've been doing. I've been using the A1 body. We're a couple races into the season on our local events. And talk to us about how the A1 body's been working for you, and what are the events been like so far?
Yeah, so far we're on the second race of the series for the outdoor session. They actually are doing an on-road carpet and asphalt, and we're in the second session, third overall. And we're using the A1 touring car body with the high downforce wing. The first race, it was my first time back in on-road, so took me a little while to get used to the on-road scene again, the setups and what you really want to do with the cars, because it's quite a bit different than a two-wheel car. And we had a pretty successful first race. I finished third overall, and then race 2 was at the Village Raceway, which we raced there in 2013 for the on-road Nats. We had our Scalpel cars out there, and that was much more familiar to me. Very high bite, super fast, and the car was pretty amazing. I went ahead and mounted the body a little further forward. That seems to be the trend, so we ran the body about 4 millimeters forward. That gave me that little bit of extra steering, and the new body is super stable. So on that big high-speed track, the stability was a big factor. The track's pretty bumpy, even though it's high bite, so stability was huge, and had the high downforce wing in the rear, and it worked out really well.
So with this body, it's popular in on-road to have different weights. I mean, we're even going through that in off-road now. We have a standard and a lightweight, but with the A1 we also have a standard and a lightweight. Explain why you might want to run one versus another. I know we had some guys like Troy Schaefer and friends of ours that run stock, and you were mentioning that they kind of prefer the body sometimes a different weight. Can you explain why you would run maybe one versus another, or what's going on with the tuning there?
Yeah, with carpet, asphalt, the weight of the body is really critical. You want a lightweight body on high bite tracks, or quick tracks where you got a lot of switchbacks, things like that. On the bigger tracks, maybe lower traction, you probably want to run actually a heavier body. That was one of the things I learned at the very first race. Is we were on a low bite track, and I was kind of struggling for traction. I ran the lightweight body, and later found that some of the other guys were running standard weight bodies, and it actually gave the car a little more traction. So this past race, I went with the lightweight because it was a high bite track, but Troy actually went with the standard weight body in the 17.5 Pro Stock class, and he actually TQ'd one of the rounds, qualified second overall, and ended up winning the main. So he actually got the first official win with the body, and then I backed it up with a TQ and a win in the mod class.
Well, that's good. I mean, when you look at these bodies, I mean, obviously the weight is a big thing, like you said, but it's interesting that you can actually, in both versions, are actually important to have out there, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a tuning option, because the weight of the body, it's the highest point of the car, and these touring cars are actually pretty lightweight, so you are adding weight to the chassis anyway, so you might as well use the body as a tuning option. So for the high bite tracks, the lightweight body is probably the way to go for the lower bite tracks. And then also, if you want something a little more durable, the lightweight bodies are fairly durable, but you will get some damage, whereas the heavyweight or standard weight bodies are going to hold up a lot better.
And then you mentioned the wing in the back, running it, with the gurney side, the high downforce, if you will. What have you noticed with the different wings and in the placement on the body itself?
Another thing we've learned is the thickness of the wing is pretty important, which our body comes with a thicker wing in the bag, and that's pretty important. Guys run thicker wings. It's more stable, more downforce. And with ours, you get one of each. You get a high downforce wing, and then you get a standard wing. With the high downforce, you have a gurney in the back, and what that does is it'll give you a little more stability when you mount the body forward. So you mount the body forward to get a little more steering. You go ahead and mount the high downforce wing in the back, move it back a little bit if you want, and that gives you the extra stability in the rear.
So, kind of going over the car just a little bit. I mean, tell us, how you have this thing outfitted. We know it's a team associated car, but go over, which version and your electrical setup, and then we'll talk about your truck here a little bit.
Yeah, we have, this is the team associated TC 7.1. It's actually box stock. I mean, it comes with just about every hop up. It comes with the big bore shocks, the shorty shocks. The only thing I changed is I put a different front spring on, which is a progressive spring. It's an SMJ spring. In the rear, I'm running the associated whites, which is a little bit softer than what most people run, but that seemed to fit the track that we were on. I'm running the Reedy Black Box 510R and the Reedy Servo, Shorty Servo with Sandwall's 481 receiver. The handout tires are the Solaris 36s, which have been a great tire, good wear, consistent. And then, of course, the A1 JConcepts body with the high downforce wing that comes in there.
And then moving on, I mean, we got some more races coming up. Like you said, there was only the second race on the asphalt side of the series, and you're going to continue running the outdoor version. So, obviously, best of luck out there. Moving on to a race that we just ran down in South Florida at Coral Springs. We did some off-road racing at the regionals. We got your truck out here because you were the TQ and winner out there. We got my vehicles, the 4-wheel and 2-wheel, because I was able to win in those classes. So tell us a little bit from your side, how the modified truck class was kind of shaping up, and just the race in general, what you thought about the regionals and how the other classes went. You were participating in the buggy class, and you watched the 4-wheel, and how did the race kind of go from your perspective?
Overall, I thought the race was really good. Track conditions were a little tricky because they had some weather early in the week, and it was actually pretty amazing that we got to race with all the rain that they've had, but the track was in great shape, just a little lower traction than we're used to. And turnout was pretty good. They had to reschedule the race because of weather from earlier in the month. And so we got to race 2-wheel, 4-wheel truck. There was also expert stock and 13.5 4-wheel. Mm-hmm. And for me, I ran truck mod, which I haven't run in a couple of years. My truck was still set up for the high bite slick tracks, so I had to make a few changes last minute. We did that and just went a little lighter oil, and the thing was still amazing. The T5M still gets it done, has lots of traction. Ran green double Ds front and rear. I think I only mounted 2 sets the whole time, so that was really nice, and ended up TQing and winning. And then in 2-wheel, I didn't do quite as well as I hoped, but had a good run. I finished 4th overall. And watching you and Lee Setzer, who is really coming on. This is his first season run a mod, and you guys had some killer battles with Justin Fales, local kid down there running the Serpent cars, and that was really fun to watch actually in the 4-wheel classes as well, because Justin TQ'd, and you had to be pretty aggressive on the starts and get up there and run with them, so that was fun to watch. And I think we ran green double Ds pretty much in all of our vehicles. I think you ran green rips in the front as well as Lee and myself, so it was actually kind of nice to just kind of relax with the tire game. We just could run the same set or same type of tire the whole time.
Yeah, it was an interesting weekend because, we've been doing so many events lately where we either take the van out there or, truck and trailer. But in this situation, we had guys that were up at the Fall Brawl. We got JR's car here. He was up there with Thomas doing an event. So we kind of went to Coral Springs more like with just one truck, as much stuff we can fit in there with Lee. And we had a good fun weekend down there. It's not often that we get to do multiple day races in Florida, so it was nice to be able to do a little practice and then have the Saturday and Sunday,
Sure.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as you said, you mentioned the track conditions were a little bit looser than maybe we would wanted or were expecting. But obviously we were always using the double Ds. One thing that I've noticed, what you did with your truck too, is we've been using more closed cell inserts recently, right?
Yeah, it seems like the closed cell inserts give you a little more stability. You may lose a touch of side bite, but you gain forward traction, and then the stability coming on and off the straightaway over big jumps, things like that, the tire's not expanding, and you get a more consistent contact patch. So that seems to help quite a bit.
Yeah, we went to that with the with the two-wheel buggy in the rear. We're like, oh, we always try the open cells because they come with the tires, and normally they work really well. But we went to some closed cell, just our dirt tech stuff, and noticed that it was a little better on the two-wheel. So I went to it in the rear, the four-wheel, and the front, and it makes the tire actually a little smaller diameter, and the profile is not quite as round with the closed cell insert, which seems to work better, I think, when the track is in that in-between stage.
Right.
And then you found kind of on Mod Truck, you're like, let's go ahead and put the closed cell in there. And, you did a couple things on the inserts, right, to try to get them a little bit softer, right?
Yeah, on the truck inserts, they're a little firmer. And so what I did is I cut a little groove down the center of the insert. And it's something I've done in the two-wheel as well. Mm-hmm. And it gives you that flatter profile, like you mentioned, and softens it up at the same time. So that flatter profile gives you that more forward bite, a little less side bite, more corner speed. So it works in two-wheel, so why not try it in truck?
Yeah, I mean, so we had a good weekend down there. Like you said, Lee ran so well, and then Justin Fales, who has been racing all over but races for Serpent, he had a good weekend down there racing with us. So we had a good competition. We had a good turnout at Coral Springs. We were able to get 3 of the mod titles for us while we were down there. And then, while we were racing down there, we had Thomas and JR at the Fall Brawl. And, we were kind of seeing some results as we were driving and checking in throughout the weekend. And, we got JR's car here in e-buggy because he ran so well in the e-buggy class. It was a double A main event, but, he went at it with Joe Bornhorst, and he got the better of him there in one of the A mains, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive run. We were trying to watch on Facebook Live while we're driving, and seeing some of the moves that he's putting on Joe, and there was actually a lot of fast guys in the race. I think John McGinty was in there battling, and Griffin Hanna, and so Prickett. I mean, there's a lot of fast guys up there.
Yeah,
and JR was definitely on top of his game that weekend.
Yeah, I mean, what you can see is, people say sometimes they think this is unusual, but what you're looking at is a track that would be more comfortable to us, even though that it's it's a track that's in Myrtle Beach, but it's still very similar to what is in Florida and our style tracks. And for JR, with all the experience that he has in Florida and those style tracks, I mean, to me, when you're watching him drive, it looks like he's driving with the aggression, and he's really experienced on that type of surface and track, right?
Yeah, it seems like his confidence level was really high, and like you said, it's the track is really smooth. It's grooved, so it's pretty high bite, and it just has a really nice flow. It's almost like watching a 10 scale 4-wheel drive.
Yeah,
and he definitely had everything he needed. He was making the right tire choice. I think this is his 2nd year in a row, maybe even 3rd. And that race it gets tricky because of the weather. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cold up there, and they start off on one compound, and they go from soft or super soft to an extreme R2 or O2. Mm-hmm. So he had that experience behind him, and made all the right tire choices, and paid off.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the buggy here, he said they ran the A1. The track was still light outside, had some warmth in the track. He went with the R2, the rehab tires, which is on the car here, is a 10-minute main, and he said that the car just was worked so well in that condition and with this particular tire that he went for it in the 10-minute main, and he said it really paid off for him.
Yeah, you could definitely see it. I mean, he was making some passes on guys that where he had the confidence to throw it in there and make a clean pass, mm-hmm. and not most of the 8-scale stuff gets kind of dirty, and you mm-hmm. got to do some rubbing and racing it, but he was able to make a lot of clean passes, and it just shows you he had the confidence to hold the lines.
Yeah, I mean, and not only did JR have success out there, but Cole Ogden, he's been racing so well this year with Mugen, but his contract was over. He decided to sign with HB Racing, which is going to be end of this year, 2018, and Cole was awesome.
Yeah, this was I think his first official race with the vehicles, and yeah, he was on it. I mean, he had pretty much dominated the truggy, and in buggy qualifying, and then in the main he had a nice lead, but had a flame out and had to drop all the way back to I think 8th, I believe, and came back and just was on a mission and was running. I think was a second a lap faster than everybody, and made his way through the field. And JR was actually running a great race in Nitro as well. He led almost half the race at the end, and just at the end, Cole caught him and made the pass, and they finished first and second, I believe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, talking to JR afterwards, he mentioned he knew Cole was coming back. He was trying to ride that fine line of not being too aggressive to make the mistake, take him out of it, but he also wanted to maintain what he had going. He felt he had a good race going. He didn't want to risk himself getting out of the top 3, and he said he could tell Cole was coming, but he said when he got there, he raced him a little bit, but also tried to maintain a good race for himself, and he knew that Cole was a little quicker, but he wanted to get that second at the very minimum, and he came out with a first and second on the weekend between the two classes. Cole getting the truggy, as you mentioned, and the nitro buggy. So for us, we had a great weekend there. We also had great guys running in the open classes. I know Thomas was even running, and we had a real success right down the board.
Sure, yeah, that's a track that we've always done well at, and to see those guys, there was John McGinty, like I said, and Griffin Hanna and Prickett, and they all showed equal speed and consistency, and so it was a great event.
And I think even little Bentley Cribb, right? He was running really well, and won a couple classes out there, running in the open class. So, and he was really fast.
Sure.
So not just in there and getting the wins, but he really kind of dominated in his division, right?
Yeah, you could definitely see he's gonna have to bump up pretty soon, because he's coming on strong.
Yeah. So I mean, great couple weeks of racing between Paul running so well in the on-road class. We're getting that A1 out there. Kind of getting some on-road experience, getting that some exposure. Went down to the regionals, had a great event. It was a great race for the old guys, I guess you could say. And then JR holding it down in e-buggy for TLR, and JConcepts and Tekin and everybody. And then Cole Ogden, obviously, continuing what he's been doing all year, running well on these East Coast races and West Coast, and doing it with the HB cars now, and of course still with the JConcepts. And we just like to thank everybody for joining us here, and hope you enjoyed this little racing update, and we'll be back soon with more information from JConcepts, and thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.